I was thrown out of my own house by my daughter-in-law. My son nodded. It's time you take care of yourself. I called the police, but the one who answered was her father. With no way out, I knelt on the sidewalk. That's when a mysterious man walked up to me and said 3 words. You remember me. Before we continue first, let me thank you for watching Auntie May 365 Voice. Please subscribe and tell us where you're watching from in the comments. We might give you a shout out in our next video. Today's special shout out goes to Diana from California. Thank you for being part of our family. Now let me tell you everything. My name is Eleanor Grace, and at 68 years old, I never thought I'd be sitting on cold concrete, watching strangers walk past my own front door. The trouble started on a rainy Tuesday morning. I was polishing books in the family library when I heard Vanessa's sharp voice cutting through the house. Andrew, we've discussed this 100 times. She snapped at my son. Your mother has got to go today. I dropped the cloth in my hand, dust scattering like ashes. They were planning my removal again. But Mom built this library herself, Andrew said weakly. She's lived here since I was in diapers, was being the key word. Vanessa shot back coldly. We've been covering her expenses for 2 years now. I'm tired of pretending we're running a retirement home. My heart broke into pieces. Yes, Andrew had been helping with my bills since my pension wasn't enough. But this house held 50 years of memories. Every shelf told a story. Every corner echoed with laughter from birthday parties and holiday dinners. I walked into the kitchen trying to stay calm. Vanessa, if this is about me using too much electricity for the lamps, I can cut back. This isn't about your dusty books. She interrupted, her blue eyes as cold as winter frost. This is about space. This is about privacy. And honestly, Eleanor, you're in our way. Andrew stood behind his wife like a shadow. At 42, my son looked so much like his grandfather. But Grandpa Joe never would have let anyone speak to family that way. Andrew, I whispered. Surely we can find another solution. This is my home, too. He wouldn't look at me. Mom, maybe it's time you considered assisted living. You'd have activities, people to talk to. The words hit me like cold water. Assisted living. I wasn't helpless or confused. I still drove, cooked, and cared for my books. I'm 68, not 88, I said, my voice shaking. I don't need to be put somewhere. Vanessa stepped closer, her red fingernails drumming on the counter. You need to understand something, Eleanor. Andrew and I are planning our future. We want children and we need space for a nursery. Your library could be perfect for a baby. My library. The place where I'd taught Andrew to read his first words, where I spent countless hours creating order and beauty. They wanted to erase me completely. Where am I supposed to go? I asked quietly. Vanessa shrugged carelessly. That's not our problem anymore. You're a grown woman. Figure it out. The cruel indifference in her voice left me speechless. This was the woman my son had chosen over his own mother. I need some time to pack and find a place. You need to leave today. Vanessa cut me off. I've already called someone to change the locks at 4:00 p.m. I turned to Andrew, searching his face for any sign of the little boy who used to help me stack books. Andrew, please. He finally met my eyes, and what I saw there crushed me. Resignation. He'd already given up on me. It's time, Mom, he said softly. It's time for you to start fresh, somewhere new. 4 hours later, I stood at the bus stop with 3 garbage bags and a small box of photo albums. The locksmith was already working, the sound of drilling echoing like a funeral bell. With trembling hands, I pulled out my phone and called 911, emergency services. What's your emergency? I've been illegally kicked out of my home, I said, trying not to cry. I need someone to help me. Ma'am, you'll need to call our family services line for housing disputes, the operator said. But they changed my locks. They won't let me get my things. The line went quiet for a moment. What's the address? I gave my address and heard her sharp breath. Ma'am, I'm transferring you to Officer Martinez. He covers that area. A deep voice came on the line. This is Officer Martinez. I hear you're having family troubles. Yes, I've been locked out of my home by my daughter-in-law and my son won't help me. "Look, lady," he interrupted, "family fights aren't police business. You should have worked this out before it got this bad my blood turned to ice. How do you know it's a family fight?" He laughed, and the sound made my skin crawl. "Let's just say I'm familiar with the situation. My advice: find somewhere else to sleep tonight. Don't make trouble." The line went dead, and I stared at my phone in shock. How did this officer know about my situation? How was he familiar with it? Then it hit me. Martinez. Vanessa's last name was Martinez before she married Andrew. The police officer was Vanessa's relative, probably her brother or cousin. I sank onto the bench at the bus stop, overwhelmed by how trapped I was. I had nowhere to go, no one to call, and even the police were working against me. Tears poured down my face as I realized how completely alone I felt in this world. "Excuse me, ma'am," a gentle voice said. "Are you hurt?" I looked up through my tears to see a man in his 70s standing nearby. He had kind gray eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses and wore a simple brown jacket. He reminded me of someone, but I couldn't place who. "I'm fine," I lied, wiping my face with my sleeve. He looked at my bags. Then, at the house in the distance where Vanessa was surely watching with satisfaction. "No," he said softly. "You're not fine, and you shouldn't have to sit on a bench like this." He paused, studying my face carefully. "You deserve so much better than this." Something about his voice made my heart skip. There was something familiar, like an old song I'd forgotten. The man reached out his hand to help me stand, and when our fingers touched, 45 years disappeared in a heartbeat. "Victor," I whispered the name, escaping my lips like a prayer. His gray eyes crinkled as he smiled, the same smile that had made my teenage heart flutter all those years ago. "Hello, Eleanor." When I whispered his name, Victor, my voice trembled as if the syllables themselves carried the weight of decades. He was standing there at the bus stop, his gray hair stirred gently by the evening breeze, his hand steady around mine. For a heartbeat, I forgot that just hours earlier, I had been forced out of my home, humiliated by my own son and his calculating wife. I could barely believe it. My high school sweetheart, the boy my parents had forbidden me to love, was here alive and looking at me as though 45 years had been nothing more than a long pause in a conversation. "Hello, Eleanor," he said softly, his smile as familiar as sunlight after a storm. The shock of it left me dizzy. My knees threatened to buckle, not only from exhaustion, but from the impossible hope that surged through me. I had gone from despair on a cold bench to suddenly feeling impossibly protected, as if the universe had sent him at the exact moment I needed him most. "Victor." I repeated, tears sliding down my cheeks. How is this real? His eyes searched mine, gentle yet unwavering. "It's real because I promised myself long ago that if I ever saw you in pain, I would never walk away again." Victor led me away from the bus stop. He carried 2 of my bags without asking the way he used to carry my books in high school. We walked in silence for several blocks until we reached a modest but warm-looking townhouse near the edge of town. "This is mine," he said, unlocking the door. "It isn't much, but it's safe. And right now, safety is what matters." Inside, the air smelled faintly of cedar and fresh tea. His home was simple, clean, and filled with small comforts, soft lighting, sturdy furniture, and walls lined with photographs. One in particular froze me in place. It was me at 18 wearing my graduation gown, smiling awkwardly at the camera. I gasped. "You kept this Victor's face softened. I've carried that picture with me through every move, every change, every success and failure, because no matter what happened, I never stopped caring about you." The tears I thought I had run out of came again. My life had been torn apart only hours ago, yet here I was standing in a room that radiated not judgment, not rejection, but protection. Absolute protection. As we drank tea at his kitchen table, Victor leaned forward. His voice lowered, conspiratorial. "Eleanor, I know what Vanessa has been doing to you, and I know about her brother." My heart lurched. You do. I've been keeping an eye on things for a while, he admitted. I saw the way she treated you at the grocery store last fall. I overheard her speaking cruelly to you at the town council meeting. It troubled me enough that I began to ask questions. I was stunned. You investigated her, yes. And what I found... He reached for a folder from the counter. Inside were photocopies, public records, property transfers, even nursing home admissions. Vanessa has a pattern: 2 long-term relationships before Andrew. Both men older, both with property, both manipulated until their families were pushed aside. And both left her with assets. Shock coursed through me, but mingled with something fiercer hope. He wasn't speculating. He had proof. Then he leaned even closer. And there's more. Your eviction wasn't just sudden, it was coordinated. The locksmith, the police call, the timing, it was arranged. Vanessa and her brother made sure you had no way out. For a moment, my blood froze. Then, against all odds, I felt a spark ignite in my chest. I was no longer alone in the dark. Victor knew. Victor was ready. Victor paused, then added something that changed everything again. Eleanor, you're not the only one she's tried to hurt. Last month, a neighbor from 2 streets over came to me. His widowed father had nearly lost his house because of a woman who pressured him to sign over property for the family's future. That woman was Vanessa. He didn't want to speak publicly, but he gave me his statement. A hidden ally. A witness to Vanessa's schemes. Suddenly, this wasn't just my word against hers. There were others. My chest heaved with a strange, powerful emotion I hadn't felt in years. Vindication. For months, I had thought maybe I was overreacting. Maybe I was difficult. Maybe I was truly a burden. But now I saw the truth. Vanessa was a predator, and Victor was building a shield around me brick by brick. He reached across the table and took my hands in his. His grip was warm, firm, steady. Eleanor, you are not going to fight this battle alone. I promised you when we were kids that I would protect you even if I had nothing. Now I have resources, knowledge, and time, and I intend to use every bit of it for you. Shock gave way to hope, and hope burst into something explosive like the first ray of sunlight after a storm that seemed endless. For the first time since I had heard Vanessa's voice that morning, I could breathe without feeling like I was drowning. I had someone who believed me, who understood the danger, and who was determined to fight at my side. Later that evening, Victor showed me blueprints he had kept hidden in a drawer. This was supposed to be just an investment, he explained. It was a design for a house by the sea, complete with a wide sunroom and a small library. Tears welled again. You designed this, with me in mind. Yes, he admitted quietly, because no matter how many years passed, I never forgot who you were. I built my life with one hope that someday I'd be strong enough to protect you the way I should have back then. Shock, hope, protection, all swirling together until my chest ached. Could it be possible that at 68, after humiliation and betrayal, life was giving me not just safety, but a second chance at love? That night, as I lay in the spare room Victor had prepared for me, I realized my story was no longer about loss. It was about something far rarer, the miracle of being seen defended and cherished when I thought all was gone. But what would happen when Andrew and Vanessa discovered that Victor held the power to turn their world upside down? Would my son see the truth, or would he cling to the lies he'd been fed? And now, dear listener, I want to ask you directly. If you were in my place, forced out by your own family but suddenly given a protector who knew the truth, would you press 0 to walk away quietly or press 1 to stand and fight for justice? The morning light filtered through Victor's curtains, pale and unforgiving. I hardly slept at all, my mind racing with the truth he had shown me. The folder of documents, the blueprint of a future by the sea, and his vow that I would never again fight alone. But morning always brings its own reality. Today Andrew and Vanessa were coming here, and Victor intended to expose her. The clock seemed to pound louder with each tick. At 9:30, Victor sat me down. "You don't have to be in the room yet," he said gently, "but you'll hear everything, and when the time is right, you'll walk in." The air itself felt suffocating. My heart thudded against my ribs so hard I thought it might give me away. Fear battled with fury inside me. Fear that Andrew would cling to her lies. Fury that I had been reduced to begging on a sidewalk because of the woman he married. Victor's townhouse was transformed into a battleground. He wore a navy blazer, his face calm, but his eyes blazing with a determination that gave me strength. In the office, 2 chairs faced his desk, ready for Andrew and Vanessa. A car door slammed outside. I rushed to the bedroom adjoining the office where I could hear but remain unseen. The front door opened. I heard Andrew's voice, tentative. "Mr. Chen, thank you for seeing us." Victor's voice was smooth, almost businesslike. "Of course. Please come in. Have a seat." Vanessa's heels clicked across the hardwood. I could almost see her smug smile in my imagination. She thought she was about to charm her way through another problem. I gripped the edge of the bed. My throat felt tight, the air thin. This wasn't just a conversation, it was an ambush of truth. For the first 10 minutes, the talk was about numbers, mortgage balances, missed payments, the possibility of foreclosure. Andrew stammered nervously while Vanessa projected false confidence. Then Victor's tone shifted. "I understand the house previously belonged to Eleanor Grace. What's her living situation now?" There was silence. I pictured Andrew glancing at Vanessa, unsure. "She has options," Vanessa said smoothly. "It's better this way. Less stress for everyone." Victor's reply cut like glass. Better for whom? The suffocating tension coiled tighter around me. My nails dug into my palms. He was circling her, waiting to strike. Victor leaned forward. "Vanessa, how long do you plan to keep pretending your record is spotless, or that this is the first time you've maneuvered a man away from his family?" I heard Andrew's sharp intake of breath. "What are you talking about?" "This isn't her first performance," Victor said. "She's done it before twice. Both men had property. Both families were pushed aside. Both left her with assets before she walked away." "You're lying." Vanessa snapped, her sweetness gone in an instant. "This is slander." "No," Victor replied. "This is public record. Transfers, deeds, nursing home admissions. And now your brother, Officer Martinez, covering for you, abusing his badge to silence complaints. Convenient, isn't it?" The blaze had ignited. Anger flared in my chest so hot I could barely keep still. This was the truth I had begged Andrew to see. Victor wasn't finished. He reached into his desk drawer and pressed a button. A recording played. Vanessa's voice filled the office, cold and unmistakable. "Andrew will cave. He always does. His mother is weak, and once she's gone, the house is ours. Don't worry, my brother will handle the rest." I clapped a hand over my mouth. My knees shook so violently I thought I'd collapse. She had been recorded. Proof undeniable and damning. Andrew's voice broke. "Vanessa, is this you, Silence?" Then the sound of a chair scraping back. She must have leapt up. "This is entrapment," he manipulated. But Andrew cut her off, his voice louder than I had ever heard it. "Answer me, is this you or not?" The recording had tipped the balance. This wasn't suspicion anymore. It was exposure, ruthless and final. Vanessa tried to recover, spinning lies, blaming me, even accusing Victor of obsession. But every word sounded shrill against the recording. Andrew pressed harder, his anger rising. "You told me your brother was a paramedic," he shouted. "You showed me certificates. Was that a lie too?" Victor didn't let her breathe. "Those certificates belonged to a man named Robert Martinez. He died in 2019. Your brother bought them at an estate sale." The office erupted. Vanessa's denials collapsed under the weight of undeniable evidence. The suffocating tension gave way to roaring outrage, mine, Andrew's, Victor's. The truth had been laid bare without mercy. "I trusted you," Andrew said, his voice shaking with fury. "I turned my back on my own mother for you, and all this time you were using me." Vanessa's voice cracked, desperate. I did it for us. For our future, there is no us. Andrew spat. Not anymore. The sound of another chair pushing back. I knew he had stood facing her down for the first time. You don't get to rewrite this. You don't get to bury my mother and walk away with everything. You're done. The words reverberated like thunder. From my hiding place, I felt my own chest expand for the first time in months. No more humiliation. No more isolation. This was vindication justice clawing its way to the surface. It reminded me of the Reddit revenge stories I had read late at night on my phone, strangers who took back their dignity after betrayal. But this was no story on a screen. This was my life unfolding in a blaze of truth. And unlike those Reddit revenge stories, I was living it in real time, watching the liar's mask melt away. In that moment, I understood why those Reddit revenge stories resonated so deeply. Because revenge isn't always about cruelty, it's about reclaiming what should never have been taken. Victor let the silence stretch his presence, looming like a verdict. "Yeah, you thought Eleanor was defenseless," he said finally, "but you miscalculated. She's not alone, not anymore." I knew then it was time, my cue, my chance to step into the office to show my son that the mother he thought broken was standing tall once more. I gripped the doorknob, my pulse hammering. On the other side, Andrew and Vanessa's future teetered on a cliff. Would Andrew fully turn back to me? Would Vanessa lash out in desperation? The suffocating tension had exploded into a wildfire of truth. And as I opened the door, I carried with me not just anger, but the certainty that the days of silence were over. The room fell silent as I stepped inside, every eye locking on me. My son's face was pale, Vanessa's twisted with fury, and Victor's gaze steady as steel. I inhaled deeply, ready to speak the words I'd held back for too long. This was the moment where everything betrayal, humiliation, and love collided into one. But what I said and how my son answered would decide our family's future forever. And before I tell you what happened next, let me ask if you believe truth should always win over lies. Take a moment to like this story. It helps keep these voices alive. When I stepped into the office, silence crashed down like a hammer. Andrew's face turned ghostly pale. Vanessa's lips parted, her fury frozen mid-word. And Victor stood like a sentinel, arms folded, eyes burning with a righteous fire. For a moment, no one breathed. I could hear only the ticking of Victor's clock, each second slicing through the air. My presence shattered the last illusion that I was gone, beaten, erased. Mom Andrew whispered, his voice cracking. He stumbled back a step as though he were staring at a ghost. "What are you doing here?" I steadied my trembling hands against the chair. "I'm here because this is my life you've both been talking about as though I don't exist." The words hung heavy, sinking into the marrow of the room. Vanessa was the first to recover. "Don't you see, Andrew?" she said sharply. "This is all orchestrated. She's clinging to the past. That man she stabbed a finger at, Victor, is obsessed with her. They've planned this to take everything from us." Her lies poured out thick and poisonous, but for once, Andrew didn't look at her. He looked at me, and in his eyes I saw the cracks forming the collapse of everything he thought he knew. You were sitting outside." His voice shook. "On the street, she really left you like that?" I nodded. The memory surged up, crushing me again. The cold bench, the weight of my bags, the humiliating click of locks sealing me out. The pain was unbearable, yet I knew he needed to hear it. "Yes, Andrew. You turned your back while she threw me out of my own home. You chose her lies over my truth." He staggered back as though struck. His world was collapsing around him, brick by brick, lie by lie. Victor spoke again, his tone like iron. "Andrew, you need to understand. Vanessa has done this before. Twice. And she would have done it again to you until nothing was left." He pressed play on the recording once more. Vanessa's voice echoed through the room. "His mother is weak, and once she's gone, the house is ours." Andrew sank into a chair, clutching his head. "Oh, God!" His breath came in ragged gasps. "I betrayed you, Mom." The anguish in his voice cut through me like glass. This was no longer denial. It was realization. A chasm had opened beneath his feet, and he was falling. Vanessa lunged forward, desperate. "Andrew, don't listen. He's manipulating everything. She's manipulating you." But Andrew raised his hand, silencing her. His shoulders shook. "No more lies. I can't breathe." In that moment, Victor surprised us both. He slid another folder across the desk. "Eleanor isn't the only one keeping records. I spoke with an old friend of your father's, Andrew. He gave me something, your father's private journal." My breath caught. Harold's journal, I hadn't even known it existed. Victor opened it to a marked page. In Harold's careful handwriting were words that made me weep. "If anything ever happens to me, promise me one thing. Protect Eleanor." She gave me a family, a home, everything. If Andrew ever forgets this, may someone remind him. The journal lay open like a final testimony. My late husband's voice reached across time to defend me. Andrew stared at the words, trembling. "I failed you," he whispered. His tears spilled freely now, unstoppable. The collapse of denial became a flood of grief. The weight of it broke him. My son, my flesh and blood, fell to his knees before me. "Mom." "I'm so sorry. I let her turn me against you. I let my weakness destroy what we had." The sight jolted me to my core, my proud, stubborn son crushed by guilt, shattered by the truth. My heart ached with both devastation and fierce relief. "Andrew." I knelt too, my hands cupping his tear-streaked face. "You're my son. My love for you has no expiration. But you must see now, this wasn't just about mistakes. It was about betrayal. And you have to choose the truth no matter how much it hurts." His sobs racked him. The soul-shaking shock of truth had ripped away every defense, leaving him raw and broken. Then, like a dam bursting, fury erupted from him. He turned on Vanessa, his face twisted with a rage I'd never seen. "You used me. You made me abandon my own mother. You poisoned my heart for years." Vanessa's mask cracked desperation, twisting into venom. "You think you're strong without me? You'd be nothing. I gave you ambition, a future." "No," Andrew spat, standing tall now. "You gave me chains, and today I'm breaking them." The words detonated in the room. Liberation surged through me, wild and uncontrollable. It was as though the years of silence, humiliation, and despair exploded into one moment of fierce freedom. Vanessa's face drained of color. For the first time, she saw she had lost. Truly lost. Victor's voice cut through the storm, calm and deliberate. "Vanessa, you've been exposed. The recording, the records, and now this journal, your game is over. Leave this place, or face the consequences." She stared at him, then at me, then at Andrew. Realization flickered in her eyes. She had no allies left. Not here, not now. Vanessa grabbed her purse and stormed out the door, slamming so hard the windows rattled. The silence afterward was thunderous. The storm had passed, but its aftermath left us trembling, soaked in its violence. I clutched Andrew's hand. For the first time in months, perhaps years, I saw not the shadow of the boy I raised, but the man who might yet redeem himself. That evening, sitting with Victor and Andrew, I realized how stories like mine weren't isolated. They were echoes of countless other families torn apart and healed or destroyed by betrayal. I thought of the late nights when I'd scroll through Reddit family tales reading about other mothers, fathers, and children struggling with betrayal. Their words had given me comfort, even when I felt utterly alone. Now I was living my own chapter of those Reddit family tales, but with an ending still unwritten. As I looked at Andrew's tear-stained face, I wondered, could our bond truly heal? Or had the damage carved scars too deep to mend? And to you listening now, your opinion matters to me. Tell me honestly, is this narration, this voice of a wounded mother finding her strength compelling to you? If you think the voice is not engaging, press 0. If you think it is very engaging, press 1. The slam of the door still echoed in Victor's townhouse, a final punctuation to Vanessa's downfall. But the silence that followed was not peace. It was heavy, raw, and trembling with everything left unsaid. My son still knelt on the carpet, his shoulders shaking with sobs. His tears darkened the fabric of his shirt, and in that moment I saw not a 42-year-old man, but my little boy, again the child who once clung to my skirts when thunder shook the sky. "Mom?" Andrew's voice cracked like shattered glass. He looked up at me, eyes swollen, his face red with shame. How could I have been so blind? How could I betray you like that? The sight broke me open. My knees gave way and I sank to the floor beside him. Tears flooded my vision until the whole world blurred. I had dreamed of this moment, an apology, a recognition, but the reality was more overwhelming than I had ever imagined. He grabbed my hands, gripping them so tightly my knuckles ached. "You raised me. You sacrificed everything for me, and I chose her over you. I let her poison my heart until I treated you like a burden instead of the woman who gave me life. I don't deserve your forgiveness." The sobs that tore through him came from a place deeper than guilt. They were the cries of a son stripped of all pride, laid bare before the mother he had wronged. My tears mingled with his, and together they fell to the floor, cleansing years of bitterness in salty rivers. "Andrew," I whispered, my own voice unsteady, "I never stopped loving you. Even when you closed the door on me, even when I sat outside like I had no home, you were still my son." His face twisted with anguish. "I don't deserve you." Something fierce rose within me, a love so powerful it felt like fire coursing through my veins. I cupped his face between my palms and forced him to look into my eyes. "You listen to me," I said, my voice trembling but strong. "There is nothing you could ever do to make me stop being your mother. I carried you, I fed you, I taught you, and no matter how far you strayed, I waited for the day you'd come back. That day is now." He broke, completely collapsing against me. His sobs shook my body as he buried his face in my shoulder. I held him as I had when he was a boy, rocking him gently, though my own tears flowed without end. This was more than reconciliation. It was an eruption of the deepest bond known to humankind, mother and child torn apart, but finding their way back. Forgiveness is not easy. It costs blood, tears, and years of pain. But as I held my son, I felt something greater than anger, greater than pride. I felt release. "I forgive you, Andrew," I whispered into his hair. "Not because you deserve it, but because love is stronger than hate. Because I refuse to let bitterness steal what little time we have left together." He clung tighter, weeping harder. "I'll spend the rest of my life making this up to you." "You don't have to make it up," I replied softly. "Just walk in the truth from this day forward. That is all I ask." The words left my lips with a strange power. I knew then that the wound would scar, but it would no longer bleed. Victor cleared his throat softly, as though hesitant to intrude on the sacredness of the moment. He held a yellowed envelope in his hands. "I found this among Harold's papers when I received the journal," he said. "It's addressed to you, Eleanor, but I think Andrew needs to hear it too." With trembling fingers, I took the envelope. The paper was brittle with age, the ink slightly faded. My heart thudded as I unfolded it. It was a letter from Harold written years ago, but never given to me. His words spilled across the page. "If one day I am gone and you face hardship, remember this: you are stronger than you know, and Andrew will always return to you. Do not give up on him. He is my legacy and yours, and together you are unbreakable." My tears blurred the letters. Andrew leaned closer, reading with me. His sobs turned into gasps. "Dad believed in me even when I failed him. And I failed you." I wrapped my arm around him. "Then honor his faith now. Rise, Andrew. Be the man he knew you could be. The letter was like a bridge from the past spanning the gulf that had divided us. We sat there for a long time, mother, son, and the man who had brought us back together. Victor placed a hand gently on my shoulder. "This is what Harold wanted," he said quietly. "For the truth to restore, not just destroy." Andrew wiped his eyes and sat straighter. "I want to start over, Mom. I don't care if I lose everything else. I can't lose you again. You never lost me." I said, my tears slowing into a smile. "You only lost sight of me, and now you see me again." The moment was sacred, fragile, but strong. For the first time in months, hope felt not like a flicker, but like a steady flame. That night, as Andrew prepared to leave Victor's house, he turned back to me. "Thank you," he said simply, his voice hoarse, "for forgiving me when I couldn't forgive myself." I reached for his hand. "One day you'll forgive yourself too. Until then, let my love carry the weight you can't yet bear." We embraced once more, longer and tighter than before. It was not the end of our struggle, but it was the beginning of something new, a life rebuilt on truth, humility, and forgiveness. As Victor and I stood at the window watching Andrew drive away, I felt both exhausted and renewed. The collapse had nearly destroyed us, but through remorse, love, and forgiveness, something greater had emerged. I thought again of Harold's letter, of the journal, of every tear shed that day. They were not signs of weakness. They were proof that even in the harshest betrayals, family could be reborn. To those listening now, especially those who have children of their own, never underestimate the power of a mother's love to forgive or a child's tears to heal. Because sometimes, the deepest wounds are the ones that make us strong enough to love again. The night after Andrew left Victor's townhouse, a hush of peace settled over me. For the first time in months, perhaps years, I felt something I had almost forgotten: serenity. Not the fragile, fleeting calm that cracks under the weight of worry, but a radiant serenity that glowed from within, warm and steady. I sat in Victor's living room, a cup of tea in my hands, staring out the window as the moonlight kissed the garden. My tears from earlier still dried stiff on my cheeks, but the ache in my chest had eased. Forgiveness had done that. It had not erased the hurt, but it had transformed it into something bearable, even beautiful. Victor entered quietly, carrying a blanket. He draped it around my shoulders and pressed a gentle kiss to the crown of my head. "You were magnificent today," he said softly. "No," I whispered. "I was just a mother." He smiled, settling into the chair beside me. "That's the most magnificent thing of all." The next morning brought with it a new light, both outside and within. The sun broke over the horizon, filling Victor's townhouse with a golden warmth that matched the glow in my heart. I found myself smiling for no reason, humming as I moved through the kitchen. Victor watched me, amusement dancing in his eyes. "You look different today." "I feel different," I admitted, lighter, as though the shadows have finally stepped aside. The radiant serenity that had taken root was not just about forgiving Andrew, it was about reclaiming myself. For too long, I had been defined by survival, by holding together the pieces others kept breaking. Now I was free to simply exist, to breathe, to dream. That afternoon, Victor handed me an envelope, his expression unreadable. "What's this?" I asked. "Open it," he said. Inside was a delicate card, an invitation to a wedding. My eyes widened. "Whose wedding?" he chuckled. "Ours, if you'll have me." I looked up sharply, stunned. "Victor." He leaned forward, his eyes earnest. "Eleanor, I've loved you for 45 years. I never married because no one could compare to you. We've lost enough time. Let's not waste another day." Tears welled in my eyes, but these were not tears of sorrow. They were tears of joy, of disbelief, of dreams reborn. "Yes," I whispered. "Yes, I'll marry you." The serenity within me burst into radiant joy. Happiness did not just bloom, it soared, unfurling its wings and carrying me higher than I had thought possible at this age. We were married 3 weeks later in Victor's garden, beneath the archway of climbing roses he had nurtured for years. The ceremony was small, just a handful of friends, and Andrew standing at Victor's side as his best man, his eyes glistening with pride and humility. I wore a simple ivory dress, not extravagant, but elegant. Victor looked at me as though I were 18 again, walking toward him under the summer sun. When we exchanged vows, his voice broke. "I promised myself I would protect you," he said, "and now I promise to love you for the rest of my days." When it was my turn, my hands trembled as I held his. "We lost 45 years, Victor, but today I promise you eternity in the years we still have left." There was no grand applause, no flashing cameras, no spectacle, just love pure and unshakable rising like a hymn into the clear blue sky. Married life with Victor was unlike anything I had ever known. Not because it was dramatic, but because it was gentle. Happiness, I discovered, was not always fireworks. It could be a steady flame, a warmth that never dimmed. We spent mornings in the greenhouse Victor had built for me, tending tomatoes and herbs. Afternoons were filled with laughter as we painted together in the art studio he had prepared. Evenings we sat on the porch swing, watching the sun sink into the sea, our hands entwined. Every day I felt my heart soaring higher, carried by the joy of being seen, cherished, and loved without condition. This, Victor said one evening, his arm around me, is what we were always meant to have. And we have it now, I replied, leaning into him. That's what matters. At our age, some might say love is fleeting, but I learned something else. Late life love is eternal, precisely because it comes after loss, after scars, after everything life has taken. It is forged in fire, tested by time, and therefore indestructible. Victor and I had both lived entire lives apart, but when we came together, it was as though those years were only preparation for this moment. Every wrinkle, every scar, every sorrow had brought us here, to a love that was not youthful infatuation, but timeless devotion. One night, as we lay beneath the stars, Victor whispered, "I waited 45 years for this, and if I had to, I'd wait 45 more." I pressed his hand to my heart. "You won't have to. We're here now, and this is forever." Andrew visited, often slowly rebuilding his life. He apologized less now and instead showed his remorse through action, helping in the garden, repairing the fence, joining us for dinner. Our relationship was not perfect, but it was healing, and that in itself was a miracle. One evening, as he watched Victor and me laughing together, Andrew said quietly, "I never understood what real love looked like until now. I want to build something like this someday." His words made my heart swell. Perhaps our story, our late-life love, would become the blueprint for his redemption too. As I sit here now writing these words in the quiet of our sunroom, I know that life has finally given me its greatest gift. Not wealth, not comfort, not even longevity. But love reborn, radiant, soaring, eternal. To anyone listening who thinks their best years are behind them, let my story remind you it is never too late for joy. It is never too late for love. Because sometimes the second spring is the most beautiful of all. The weeks after our wedding unfolded like pages of a long-awaited book. The shadows that had once smothered my heart were gone. In their place stood something fierce and unshakable, the knowledge that justice had finally been served. Yet as Victor and I settled into our new rhythm, life itself seemed determined to show me that our victory was more than personal. It was universal. News spread quickly through town. Vanessa's departure was no quiet escape. She had stormed out with threats, but within days her brother, Officer Martinez, was suspended. Investigators unearthed years of bribes, cover-ups, and misconduct. Without his protection, Vanessa's reputation collapsed. Former boyfriends she had tricked into giving away property came forward emboldened by Victor's evidence. For the first time in a long time, the truth stood taller than the lies. I remember sitting on the porch swing beside Victor when Andrew brought the news. His voice trembled, not with fear this time, but with relief. "Mom, it's over. They can't hurt you anymore. They can't hurt anyone." Overwhelming triumph swelled in my chest. It wasn't just my victory. It was the victory of every mother who had ever been silenced, every elder who had been told they no longer mattered, every soul who had been pushed aside by greed. The town seemed to shine brighter in those days. Neighbors who once offered only polite nods now came to me with warm words. "We're glad you're safe, Eleanor. You're stronger than most of us. Your story gave me courage to stand up for myself, too." It was as if my pain had become a lantern, casting light into places long darkened by silence. I had not only reclaimed my home, my dignity, and my family, I had witnessed justice, radiant glowing for all to see. Victor often squeezed my hand and whispered, "See. The truth doesn't just free you, it frees everyone it touches." He was right. At our age, people often talk about endings, the end of careers, the end of usefulness, the end of dreams. But as I looked around my sunroom filled with plants thriving in sunlight, I knew the truth. Every ending can carry the seed of a beginning. Hope is not bound by age. Hope is eternal. It lives in forgiveness, in justice, in second chances, and in the courage to love again. Sometimes I would catch Victor watching me as I painted in my studio. He would smile and say I waited half a lifetime, but it was worth every day. And in his voice I heard not regret, but victory, the victory of hope that had refused to die. One evening Andrew joined us for dinner. He bowed his head before we ate, and his words broke me open. "Thank you, Lord, for giving me back my mother and for teaching me that love is stronger than pride." When I looked at him, I saw no longer the boy who betrayed me, but the man learning to walk again in truth. And I realized the greatest victory was not against Vanessa or Martinez, it was within our own family. So what lesson can I leave you, dear listener? It is this: do not let anyone convince you that your worth has an expiration date. Do not let betrayal define your future. And do not be afraid to forgive, not because they deserve it, but because you deserve peace. Justice may stumble, but it will rise again. Love may be buried, but it will bloom again. And hope never dies. On our anniversary, Victor took me to the seaside home he had built with me in mind. The greenhouse glowed with life, the studio was filled with colors, and the air smelled of salt and freedom. As we stood on the balcony watching the waves crash against the shore, he slipped his arm around me. "Do you realize," he murmured, "that this is the life we dreamed of when we were just kids?" I nodded, tears bright in my eyes. Yes, we lost so much time, but in the end, we won everything that matters. The triumph was complete not because the world was perfect, but because we had chosen truth, forgiveness, and love over fear, bitterness, and lies. And so, my dear friends listening now, I thank you for walking with me through this story, from the humiliation of being cast out to the shocking reappearance of my first love to the radiant justice that restored my life. Your listening ear has been a companion in my journey, and I pray my words have been a companion in yours. If this story touched you, please subscribe so you don't miss the ones still to come. Leave a comment below. I want to hear your stories too. And if you found strength here, share it. You never know whose life your voice might touch. Most of all, remember this: it is never too late to reclaim your dignity, never too late to seek justice, never too late to open your heart to love again. Now, before we end, I'll leave you with 2 other stories from this channel, ones that will surprise you, challenge you, maybe even heal you. This is Auntie May 365 voice, and I'll see you in the next video. And from the bottom of my heart, thank you.